step out onto your driveway one calm morning, only to find a body lying there. Not just anyone's body, but a clue, no, a threat, calling up shadows from a past you thought you'd buried forever. Imagine that. That, my friends, is exactly where Maggie Bird's story begins. I'm Sarah Bridgewater, and welcome back to the Book Club Lounge. Today, we're diving into a fresh take on the spy thriller genre, The Spy Coast, by Tess Gerritsen. And let me tell you, it's not just another espionage novel. This one will make you rethink what it means to leave the CIA behind, or try to anyway. Before we jump into the layers of intrigue surrounding Maggie Bird and her tight circle of retired CIA friends, just a quick note. If you haven't read this book yet, there will be spoilers ahead, so listener beware, though I'll try my best to keep the big reveals intact. The Spy Coast begins in the seemingly peaceful town of Purity, Maine, where Maggie has swapped spycraft for chicken farming, or so she hoped. But when a dead body shows up on her property, the quiet life she painstakingly built comes undone. Her past, along with its secrets, comes knocking, and Maggie has no choice but to answer. The Martini Club, her close-knit group of CIA retirees, has the skills, but do they have what it takes to face old enemies and protect the fragile peace they've carved out in anonymity? Gerritsen has a talent for weaving action, rich backstories, and complex characters. In this book, she expands that skill to capture themes of aging, identity, and redemption, all while keeping you at the edge of your seat. There's something almost paradoxical about the serenity of Maggie's chicken farm against the high-stakes backdrop of international espionage. I mean, what's not to love about older spies still living with the cunning instincts they mastered decades ago? So, if you're ready to hear more about Maggie and her extraordinary arc, how the tyranny of her clandestine past collides with her quiet present, stay with me as we delve deeper. And, if you find yourself intrigued, please consider liking, subscribing, and checking out our affiliate link to grab a copy of the book. Supporting the show also means more great conversations like this. All right, grab your mental passports, because next, we're plunging into Maggie Bird's remarkable transformation and how espionage left permanent scars on even the simplest joys. Picture this: a single-lane road leading to a quaint little farm where Maggie Bird, once the CIA's sharpest operative, now tends to chickens. The peace of Purity, Maine, is almost poetic, isn't it? But here's the thing. Peace like that rarely lasts. Not in Tess Gerritsen's world. Gerritsen immediately sets the tone with Maggie's transformation. One day, she's surveilling suspects across international borders. The next, she's figuring out egg collection schedules. The shift feels jarring, but it mirrors Maggie's fractured sense of safety. She's tough, yes, but there's something haunting about the way she's always watching, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Wouldn't you be too, with a past like that? Why choose a place like Purity? A quiet seaside town where the days are so uneventful that the biggest scandal is the tourist whose SUV got stuck in the sand last July. It seems like the perfect hiding spot. Or maybe it's a facade, a way for Maggie to convince herself she's left her old identity behind. But you and I both know the past never just goes away. It lingers, doesn't it? And then, of course, there's the body, dumped unceremoniously in her driveway as if to say, "Remember me?" The question echoes, not just in Maggie's mind, but in ours as readers too. What would you do? Face your past or run? Maggie doesn't get the luxury of a choice. This is where Gerritsen's brilliance shines. She plunges Maggie right back into action, pulling us with her. The serenity of Purity shatters, and the story tightens its grip, pulling past and present together in a chaotic tangle. One of my favorite lines early on is this: "The advantage of having no family ties, no children, no husband or lover, is that it makes you invulnerable." Think about those words for a second. Gerritsen highlights the ruthlessness of Maggie's spy days, that cold, calculated survival instinct. But the more time Maggie spends in purity, surrounded by neighbors who bring over casseroles when they hear gunshots, you know, the classic small-town thing, the harder it gets to sustain her armor. Isn't it ironic? A simpler life leaves her more exposed than Siberian infiltrations ever did. Through Maggie, Gerritsen asks bigger questions. Can you truly reinvent yourself? Or do our choices, however distant, continue to shape our present? As Maggie uncovers dark truths with each step closer to her old life, the answers feel unsettling. And that body in her driveway? Oh, it's no random act. It's personal. I mean, who else would dig up classified CIA missions from 16 years ago just to send a message? Chilling, isn't it? But here's where things get interesting. Remember Maggie's ties to those other retirees, her so-called Martini Club? Tightly knit, fiercely loyal, and equally enigmatic. How much do they truly know about her secrets? And what role will they play in protecting her? That's the puzzle we'll tackle next. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Imagine a room, dimly lit, with 5 retired CIA operatives seated around an old oak table. They're pouring drinks, martinis naturally, but don't let the casual setting fool you. These are seasoned agents, each holding secrets most of us can't even imagine. This, my friends, is the Martini Club, and their skills are as sharp as their wit. Maggie Bird might have traded covert missions for chickens, but the bonds she shares with these people, Declan, Ingrid, Ben, and Lloyd, are unbreakable. They work like a single unit, their conversations laced with a shorthand born of years spent in the field together. Gerritsen does a brilliant job of capturing this camaraderie. You really feel the weight of what they've been through, especially when Operation Cyrano comes up, because that mission, it left scars. Operation Cyrano was one of those missions that starts simple enough. A covert move in Malta, intended to disrupt a potential global conflict. But as we learn through flashbacks, it spiraled into chaos, betrayals, casualties, and Maggie's eventual decision to walk away from the agency altogether. One quote that stood out: "When you live in a world of mirrors, the truth is always distorted." Doesn't that just hit you? It reflects not just espionage, but life itself, how we see what we want to see until the truth forces itself into view. And if we thought Maggie's turmoil had ended when she left Malta, Bianca's death serves as a devastating reminder that the past never truly stays buried. Here's the rub. Maggie sees parts of herself in Bianca, a young, ambitious operative entangled in a dangerous web. The difference is, Maggie survived. But Bianca? Bianca didn't get that chance. When her body showed up on that frozen driveway, it wasn't just an attack. It was a message aimed directly at Maggie and her Martini Club. Gerritsen paints this juxtaposition beautifully. You feel Maggie's guilt, her anger, but also her resolve. She's not just mourning Bianca, she's rallying. And her team? They're right there with her, questioning, strategizing, leaning on decades of hard-earned experience. Every move feels deliberate, urgent. It's clear. These aren't retirees craving adventure. They're warriors reclaiming agency in a world trying to leave them behind. But then there's the tension. Do they trust each other fully? Or are there cracks beneath the surface, unspoken doubts? That's the beauty of this group dynamic. Layers upon layers of loyalty, love, and suspicion. Gerritsen doesn't give it to us all at once either. She teases it out, forcing us to sit with our discomfort, to question what we do in Maggie's shoes. Now, as the Martini Club reviews every lead, every shadowy figure from Maggie's past, you're on edge. Just like Maggie, you're wondering, who betrayed them back then? And more importantly, who's pulling strings now? Because here's what we know. They're not just revisiting Malta. They're reliving the most painful aspects of their lives through each twist of this messy, deadly puzzle. And the cliffhanger? Let me leave you with this. As Maggie pieces together clues from Bianca's final days, she realizes Operation Cyrano is more relevant than she ever imagined. But the question is, who else knows? Next, we'll dive into Purity's own acting police chief, Jo Thibodeau. Her role is becoming pivotal, not just as a thorn in the Martini Club's side, but as someone navigating her own maze of secrets. Stay tuned. Let's step into the shoes of Jo Thibodeau for a moment. Purity's acting police chief, and perhaps its most underestimated figure. Jo's days used to be about detangling traffic disputes or calming down rambunctious tourists. But here she is now, standing in the middle of a storm she didn't ask for, one brought straight to her doorstep by Maggie Bird and the Martini Club. Jo's position as the acting chief isn't exactly secure. Every decision she makes comes under scrutiny, not just from her higher-ups, but also from her own community. And you can bet that investigating a body landing in Maggie's driveway, surrounded by a group of retirees who seem to know just a little too much, complicates things further. Can you imagine the suspicion, the mounting pressure? Because even Jo knows that there's far more going on with Maggie and her friends than their outward appearances suggest. But breaking through their tight defenses? That's a task in itself. It's Gerritsen's skillful writing that pulls us into Jo's conflicted world. On one hand, Jo's natural instincts tell her to trust the evidence. After all, isn't that what good police work is about? But on the other hand, there's Maggie and her crew. They move like they're playing chess on a board she can't even see. Take this moment, a simple exchange between Jo and Maggie. Jo bluntly says, "You and your friends are a puzzle, Maggie Bird." It's such a short line, but layers of tension sit just beneath the words. As readers, we're practically shouting with her. Who are these people really? And then there are the themes of aging and identity woven into every chapter. Jo is pragmatic, committed, and deeply connected to Purity. She's spent her life proving herself among doubters, carving her place in a profession that often underestimated her. In a way, Jo and Maggie are two sides of the same coin. Both women, working within systems that doubted their capabilities, had to carve out their identities through sheer determination. Jo's work as acting chief parallels the Martini Club's. Both are grappling with their relevance in an ever-changing world. But let's not forget Gerritsen's masterful use of international settings to bring depth to the narrative. The scenes in Malta, Istanbul, and Bangkok don't just provide high-stakes backdrops. They're woven into Maggie's psyche. When Jo stumbles upon clues tying Maggie to these global hotspots, there's a visceral sense that this small-town cop is being drawn into something far larger than she ever anticipated. One flashback to Malta even includes this chilling line. Every corner of that city felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the moment to shatter. It's Gerritsen's use of alternating timelines that pushes tension sky high, giving readers just enough to crave more. Here's the kicker. Jo is not just an observer in this story. She's pivotal. As much as we're rooting for Maggie and her Martini Club, we can't help but admire Jo's dogged determination to uncover the truth. It's mirror-like, isn't it? Maggie is haunted by her past and feels boxed in by secrets, while Jo, in her own way, finds herself boxed in by rules, red tape, and a lack of trust from all sides. Both women are yearning to break free, but at what cost? And speaking of trust, we, the readers, are stuck with an intriguing dilemma. Do we side with Jo, the relentless investigator determined to shine a light on Maggie's shadows? Or Maggie, the elusive spy-turned-chicken farmer whose secrets threaten to shatter her hard-earned peace? Yeah, it's a tough call, one that only deepens as the story unfolds. So let me ask you, listeners, what would you do? If you stood in Jo's shoes, would you let Maggie off the hook? Or would you dig deeper, knowing you might not like what you find? Oh, but don't worry, the story's far from over. Next, we'll take a look at how readers like you have reacted on platforms like Goodreads and beyond. But here's a thought to chew on until then. What would it take for someone to convince you they're telling the truth? After all, in a world of mirrors, as Gerritsen reminds us, the truth isn't always what it seems. Stick around, more perspectives are just a chapter away. So, let me draw you into the heart of the conversation that's been running wild online about The Spy Coast. Readers absolutely adore the way Tess Gerritsen intertwines thrillers with reflections on aging and relevance. Over on Goodreads, one reader said, and this is quite poetic, I think, "You're left wondering if agents like Maggie ever truly retire, or if their pasts just go quiet, like coals waiting to be stoked. Isn't that something?" Another noted how the Martini Club doesn't just challenge the spy genre. It celebrates the wisdom that only comes with time. It seems to have struck a chord in ways beyond the typical action thriller. Those layers of identity, guilt, and redemption are so deeply human that readers have compared Maggie Bird to their neighbor, their aunt, even, dare I say it, themselves. And maybe that's the point. Tess captures the universal truth that none of us leave the past completely behind, don't you think? On platforms like YouTube, the Martini Club is becoming iconic. People are creating fan theories, art, and even playlists inspired by Operation Cyrano's coded shadows and Maggie's layered integrity. It's not just a story, it's a conversation. And conversations, as we know, are where the magic happens. But enough about others' thoughts. Here's something for you to ponder as this episode comes to a close. Maggie's story isn't just about resolving the mistakes of her early years. It's about embracing complexity and learning to live in the gray, rather than chasing black and white answers. What resonated most deeply with me is this idea. What if we're not defined by the truths we hide, but by the courage it takes to face them? That's an emotional gauntlet, isn't it? Now here's my challenge for you. If you could step into Maggie's shoes for one day, would you pick the past, facing those dangers head-on, or the quiet of her chickens in purity? Reflect on that, and if you feel inspired, share your thoughts. Comment below or drop me a note. I can't wait to hear how Maggie Bird inspired you, or maybe challenged the way you see reinvention. And if you've made it this far, thank you for spending a little time with me today. It's been a pleasure sharing this gem of a book with you. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more episodes, and, of course, check out the affiliate link for The Spy Coast if you haven't already. Your support keeps this little lounge of ours alive and well. Until next time, my fellow book friends, keep seeking out these stories that challenge our hearts and minds. I'll leave you with this final thought. Maggie stood on the distant shores of purity, listening to the waves whisper to the night. On that edge of Maine's coast, maybe she wasn't just hiding or surviving. Maybe she was remembering the strength it takes to keep living. And don't we all carry a little of that strength too? On that note, wherever you are, I hope you find your peace, your purity. See you next time.